Thank you very much. Namaskar. I would like to thank India Foundation, particularly Ram Madhav ji, for inviting me here 3 times in a row. And I would like to make my presentation. Obviously, I'm Tibetan, so I'll talk about Tibet, on the premises that if you really want to know about China, you have to know the Tibetan narrative. Unless you understand the Tibetan story, you will not understand China. For example, when Tibet was invaded and occupied in 1950s, Vallabhbhai Patel wrote a letter to Nehru that we have let down Tibetans. And then whole world, we've been saying this for 50 years. Look at us, we were invaded and occupied. And all the neighboring countries thought, no, you are an isolated case, good luck to you. But then now when we read China's expansionist design in South China Sea, East China Sea, Scarborough Island, then rest of the world are saying, oh, it's happening to us as well. Now similarly, when we said there is repression going on, political repression of Tibetan people in Tibet, people in Hong Kong and Taiwan and others said, well, it happened to you, it's not going to happen to us. We have basic law in Hong Kong which safeguards one country, two system. And recent events in Hong Kong clearly show that there is regression of freedom in Hong Kong. Now they all are saying that what happened to Tibet is happening to us. Now recently I was giving a talk in Mysore University and 2 students from Africa asked me, what do you make of the Chinese investment in Africa? And I said, well, did they start with building good roads? They said, yes. Did they build entertainment centers for your elite? Did they pay your elite? They said yes. And they said, how did you know about my country? I said, it happened to my country 50 years ago, it's happening to you now. So the blueprint that was used in Tibet is still used now. Similarly, I was very curious. Some cyber expert from Monk School in Toronto University and from US and Washington, DC, some really big hackers are coming to Dharamsala and they want to study access our server. And I said, why? They have found out that all the Trojans and the moles that they get in Pentagon, all the corporate moles started in Dharamsala. They start sending Trojans and moles to our server in Dharamsala. They modify it, make it more sophisticated and spread around the world. So what happens to Tibet matters if you really want to understand China. Now, I won't get into geopolitics of it, but rather I'll get to the Modi slogan of Make in India. I want to say that the Tibetan movement is a success story, relatively speaking. The international profile and its existence is because of this great India. And we've been here for the last 50-some years as refugees. Last time when I came, I said, yes, Tibetans seeking refuge in India, but Tibetans are the one who have granted refuge to Lord Shiva. Similarly, Mr. Lone talked about Kashmiri loving the river, water more than anything else. By the way, the river flows from Tibet to Ladakh to Kashmir. Indus River, the cradle of Indian civilization, Shiv's Misas in Tibet. Mansarovar is in Tibet. Mount Kailash is in Tibet. Hence, protection and success of Tibet is also beneficial to India as well. And as His Holiness Dalai Lama sent a message to India Ideas Conclave, he said he's son of India because he had chapati and dal and rice for 50 years. You know, his body is made out of Indian chapati and dal. And also his brain, the Nalanda school of thoughts, the Nalanda-based Buddhism is actually from India. Now during 7th and 8th centuries, our translators and scholars came from Tibet to India. Can you imagine 7th and 8th centuries? If 10 of them had come to India, only 2 or 3 survived. Why? Some were eaten, attacked by animals on the way. They were robbed, they were killed, and they died because of the heat in India. But 2 or 3 of them came to India, learned Sanskrit, learned Buddhism, and they brought it back to Tibet. And the best preserved Buddhist text in India, the Nalanda tradition, everybody talks of Nalanda University. It's in Tibetan language, it's in Tibetan literature. Now what happened in 1959 and thereafter? By 1962, after the invasion and occupation of Tibet, 98% of monasteries and nunneries in Tibet were destroyed. 99.99% of monks and nuns were disrobed, sent to prison, killed, tortured. In 60s, 4 olds were banned: Tibetan language, Tibetan religion, Tibetan tradition, Tibetan custom. That was the condition. Tibetans were wearing suit of Mao Zedong, all of them. It was mandated. But because His Holiness the Dalai Lama and 80,000 Tibetans fled to India and provided sanctuary in India, what we have done is we have rebuilt the major monasteries that were destroyed in Tibet. We have revived Nalanda Buddhist tradition in India. Now we have managed to again revive Buddhism in Tibet. So the Nalanda Buddhist tradition is alive because of this great country called India. And the idea of the Communist Party of China was to destroy the foundation of Tibetan civilization, that was Buddhism. They did, they tried, but they failed. And still is strong, not just strong. And His Holiness said he travels around the world and Buddhism is spreading around the world. He is the excellent messenger of peace and he is the excellent messenger of Buddhism. Now in that sense, even though we are refugee here, this is our contribution to this great civilization. A part of great civilization, Nalanda tradition, is preserved by the Tibetan people. Now we are talking about democracy. We have adopted and adapted the Indian democracy, at least the ideals of Indian democracy, in Tibetan society. So in Dharamsala, in Himachal Pradesh, we have Central Tibetan Administration, is also called government exile. We've been running like any other government. We run our own schools subsidized by the Indian government. We run our own hospitals. We run our own settlements. I was educated in one of the Tibetan schools. And we have our own finance department. We have our own security department. We have our own foreign relations. Among the 60 million or so refugees around the world that you see in news media all the time about Syrian refugees around the world, we are the best organized administration compared to any of the refugee communities. And we are a democratic one. Now, it's only in India that's possible. I cannot imagine that we can have the Tibetan administration in America or in Brussels. It's only in India that was made possible. So we are functioning administration. But then, as ambassador from Taiwan said, this morning, he attended the swearing-in ceremony of Modi ji, and 4 शब्द हिंदी में भी बोला. मैं तो करीब 10-15 शब्द हिंदी में तो बोलना ही चाहिए. ये मोदी जी और राम माधव जी, उनका कृपा है कि मैं भी swearing-in ceremony में था. मैंने सुना कहीं से कि बीजिंग का सरकार बहुत गुस्सा था. एक, मैं वहां swearing-in ceremony में था. दूसरा, मैं फर्स्ट रो में था क्योंकि उनका एम्बेसडर सेकंड रो में था. So it is the courage of the BJP party that I was there. That even though it's an exile setup, they felt that I should be there in the swearing-in ceremony among the top leaders from the neighboring countries. Having said that, as His Holiness said, he is son of India, we also say we are Chela of India. India is our guru. We learn Buddhism from India, but the Chela has preserved it better than the guru. Similarly, talking about Tibetan democracy, it is in true Hindu or Indian ideal sense. It's a partyless democracy. हमारा democracy में party नहीं है, क्योंकि party always fight for party's interest over national interest. इसलिए it's a partyless democracy. And then when we campaign, the runners-up and myself in the 2011 election, I just got re-elected. We share cars together, we share hotel rooms together, we eat together, we give each other campaign tips. This is a Buddhist-based Tibetan democracy adopted from India. Now we are not suggesting the Indian parties share bus and car together. I can clearly see next morning they will not open the doors actually when you go knocking. So this is the beauty of India, that we have thrived, we have grown. And I just came from London, and yesterday at the House of Commons, I met the Speaker of the House of Commons. He was bold enough to meet me. And in the chamber, he acknowledged my presence. I was there in the gallery. Now, thanks to our unpaid free publicity agent, Chinese foreign minister and the spokesman criticized it, and I'm all over the news today. So this is what we are trying to do. And then as far as environment is concerned, one last point, because Mr. Lone said people in Kashmir regard water as very important. Pretty soon, actually, some experts say that before wars were fought over land, now wars are fought over oil. Soon wars will be fought over water. And Tibet is the water tower of Asia. Indus River, Satluj River start from Tibet to Kashmir to India. Brahmaputra River, the lifeline of Assam and Northeast and Bangladesh, start from Tibet to Bangladesh. 4 years ago, I went to Guwahati. There were only 2 or 3 journalists. Last year I went, all the cameras were on me, and I said, what happened? Brahmaputra is actually receding because Chinese government has acknowledged that they have actually built one dam. Now they're building more. Similarly, famous Mekong River, Salween River, Irrawaddy River, which flows all the Southeast Asian countries, flow from Tibet. Yangtze River, Yellow River, the cradle of Chinese civilization, start from Tibet. Now, Tibet is the water tower which provides fresh water to 1.4 billion people in Asia. Now, China has 19% of the world population, but only 11% of fresh water, which means 400 to 500 million people in China are facing scarcity of fresh water. Situation worse in Bangladesh, situation worse in India, and in Pakistan. But Tibet is the water tower. Hence, it's vitally important for whole of Asia. That's why it is very important that Tibetans, we have to succeed as a movement from environmental point of view, from Nalanda Buddhist point of view, civilizational point of view, and from democracy point of view also we have adopted. Perhaps we have a more benign kind of, polite kind of democracy, but we have adopted. And because all the leaders of the Tibetan movement are born in India like me, and educated in India, and our path that we follow is also ahimsa, an Indian-based ahimsa. So we are actually the real Make in India movement. And that benefits India as well. So if you succeed, you succeed. If you don't succeed, which is not going to happen, but we must make Tibetan movement succeed as well, so that His Holiness the Dalai Lama can also go to his homeland very soon. So the 6 million Tibetans in Tibet who are crying, who are suffering for decades with the hope that he will return one day soon will happen. When that happens, ahimsa will prevail, justice will prevail, truth will prevail, Make in India will prevail. Thank you very much.